gridiron fanatics out there. Glad you could join us here for the Super Bowl wrap-up show of Gridiron Gab Pro Style, where we gab about all things pro football, from the scoops of the regular season to the scores of the postseason and the picks in the offseason. Let's start gabbing.
The autumn winds move like the thunderous waves of Neptune's sacred palace. And here, amongst the blackened soil, lies the ragged hands, worn, torn, and callous. They await with cunning and vicious prowess, for the warriors have returned.
Come on, Dutch! Don't do it! Woo! No way! Woo! 85! Crying out loud! You're making me, driving me nuts!
But behold,
Welcome back, you guys. Thank you once again for joining us as we wrap up with the critique of the Super Bowl 58 wrap-up show. Well, I think it's safe to say that Patrick Mahomes is that guy. You know, there's no getting away from it. Now, I will say this. Before we get into it, I think we all knew the San Francisco 49ers had a good defense. But I think defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, Steve Spagnuolo, needs to get a tip of the hat, people. For what this defense has done this season is nothing short of extraordinary. Because you think of Kansas City, you think of Patrick Mahomes, you think of Travis Kelce, you think of Andy Reid and this offense. And that's been nothing short of the case this season. I'm not going to say Patrick Mahomes was not phenomenal, but let's keep it in perspective, people. If I recall correctly, there were 9 drives. I think they were consecutive where Chiefs couldn't get anything going. And it was like all of a sudden, switch got, and it looked like once that switch was flipped, it was on. I'm not saying the Kansas City Chiefs were just a juggernaut, but what I'm saying is you could tell the Chiefs had control of this game. And it felt a lot like the Philadelphia Chiefs of Super Bowl last year. The Chiefs ran that Super Bowl with the exception of a few plays. And this same way with the 49ers. It just felt like the 49ers were on the cusp of pushing this game beyond the point of no return. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But let's take a quick look. Of course, Patrick Mahomes received the MVP. And only reason I feel like Mahomes got it was because there really wasn't anybody else that overly stood out. You could say Chris Jones. His numbers don't show it, but he was the whole reason for a lot of plays that took place where the 49ers seemingly just did not block him. The best defensive front seven guy doesn't get blocked. Patrick Mahomes goes 34-46, 333 yards, 2 scores, and a really bad interception. But he had 9 carries for 66 yards, and a guy who doesn't run it that much, I think, I'm not sure if I remember watching the interview with he had on Sports Center with an Elle Duncan. I think she said something about low scooter, she was gonna call him. But she's always been one of my favorite analysts. She's very funny. She has a witty sense of humor. But I thought that was pretty funny. I thought it was really appropriate because he doesn't look like he's running fast, but he's eating up a lot of yardage really fast, you guys. And ultimately, his legs were the difference in this game because he does it so very little, hint, hint, Lamar Jackson, that you just get absolutely caught up in him throwing the football that you totally forget this guy was a heck of an athlete at Texas Tech. And he still has that in his pocket of tricks. To me, like I said, people are going to say, did Brock Purdy cost them the game? No, but I still saw signs that this was a guy that could not get things done. You still see he's limited by his inability to read the blitz. You have to know if you got a safety up on the line of scrimmage and you're playing one deep, guess what? I got to find that safety. I've got to find that safety. Now, McCaffrey was the guy. 22 carries, 80 yards, 8 catches, 80 yards, and a score. My man Brandon Ayuk didn't have a great game. He had an okay. Jawan Jenkins-Jennings was a guy that was more than likely going to be the guy that got the MVP had the 49ers won this game. He was 1 for 1, had a 21-yard touchdown pass to it was basically across the field, a double pass to Christian McCaffrey for the touchdown, one of the touchdowns that broke the game for the 49ers at that moment. And he had a receiving touchdown later on in the game, which was a huge one. And honestly, you couldn't look at anyone else and say, okay, who would have been the guy that could have gotten the MVP for the 49ers? I mean, it really was just dispersed, all over the field. And it's tough. If you're a 49ers fan, now you understand how the Philadelphia Eagles felt. And the question's going to be, with them being the favorites, let's keep in mind, you guys, the Eagles went in the next season as the favorites. And for the better part of most of the year, they were. Could the 49ers have this same type of collapse that the Eagles endured, where all of a sudden everybody's questioning whether the Eagles are even going to be back? I mean, right now we're seeing Hassan Reddick being given permission to seek a trade. Whereas, who's the next guy up that's going to be that? Is San Francisco going to have something like this to happen? I mean, a lot of you guys are going to hit me up and wonder, why am I just talking about why am I talking primarily about the 49ers? Well, I'm a firm believer that the 49ers won this game in a lot of areas. Now, I will say, when you look at the box, the Chiefs did put up a lot of yardage. They when they drove the field, they drove it. Other than the touchdown that was pretty much gift wrapped to him off of the muff punt, the 49ers, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, you guys, for them to run the ball 31 times for 110 yards, this is where I will say, I can't say I blame Kyle Shanahan for not running the football. You're talking about he ran the ball 30. The 49ers ran the ball 31 times to 38 passes. Whereas you look at the Chiefs, they've been living by the running game as such. But the difference is that Mahomes had 9 planned carries. Purdy only had 3, and I think 2 of them were scrambles. This is where Kyle Shanahan put Purdy in a bad position. I will honestly say that this was not a perfectly called game offensively by Kyle Shanahan. I would have, if I knew that I had a guy like Brock Purdy, I would have rolled him out more and not allowed that Kansas City defense to know what was coming, or even know if there was going to be a different launch point from here, because it looked like those plays where he was improvising were successful for the most part. But looking at what is overly impressive about this win is that the Kansas City Chiefs did the same thing they did last year in the Super Bowl. They didn't lose their composure. They continuously kept executing on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm going to give this defense all its due. The Kansas City defense was phenomenal to continuously keep holding this 49. Listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, guys. And I told you guys in the Super Bowl pregame, go back and watch it. I told you guys the only position that the Chiefs were better than the 49ers on paper at was at quarterback. People are going to argue, is Kittle better than Kelsey? Take your pick. We could say even. Because, the reality of it is both of them are up in age. Father Time is catching up to both of them. And, of course, Kittle was coming off an injury. Because at one time, during their both of their heyday, and you could argue Kelsey's still there, considering he'll be 35 next in October, beginning of next season. But the reality of it is, the 49ers were better at every position on offense. And way ahead when you talk about the running back position, which Christian McCaffrey did something he very rarely did in Charlotte, or even since he's been a 49er, which is put the ball on the ground. But we also saw that get, flip-flops. So me and a couple of friends of the show were talking, that the 49ers hurt themselves, but this was not a situation where it really made them pay, because the Chiefs did the exact same thing. They put the ball on the ground deep inside San Francisco territory, so that really negated the Christian McCaffrey fumble. So the hard truth is, it looked like the 49ers were giving the Chiefs everything they had, and arguably this game could have been ugly in the first half for the Chiefs. This game could have arguably been over. I'm just keeping it I'm keeping it real, people. And for no more, I would say Brock Purdy only made one mistake with the football that could have cost them. And I truly felt like the 49ers were going to win this game. But I never got the sense that they were. I felt like the 49ers could win this game, but I just never got the sense the Chiefs were going to let them out of they're going to let them out. And I was right. I mean, we kept sitting there saying, when is Mahomes going to show up? And I remember after that interception in the third quarter, I was like, that might be the dagger. But that defense kept playing, they kept scratching, they kept clawing, and they just would not let this team lose. And I just feel, Mahomes said it in his interview with SportsCenter, but what I was really cool with was how he really put a lot of emphasis on the defense doing what it did. And honestly, you can't take anything away from that defense. I mean, I would have never guessed the Chiefs would have an elite defense. They've really done a really good job taking good pieces at the end of the first round and putting them on this team. And they've even made some good moves in the second round as well, taking pieces that are very crucial to fill this defense with needs and whatnot. And honestly, you guys, I mean, it was a Super Bowl that I felt like that I believe is going to be an instant classic. But let's get into the end of I'm not even going to talk about the field goal. People are going to say the extra points what cost them and so on and so forth. Really, to me, the way the Chiefs were playing, they would have been beaten in regulation. In the story, they would have been beat at the end of regulation. But I'm flabbergasted at Shanahan's taking the football first, because I'm sitting here listening to guys like Herm Edwards talking about I mean, it was just like one of the most asinine comments I had ever heard. You go for it on 4th and 3, 4th and 4 in overtime.
Who told you to think?
Right. So now you force Mahomes to drive nonchalantly down the field and get a damn.
What a dumbass!
It's not funny. Hey, shut up!
Some people don't need to be in front of a mic. That's all I'm going to say. Seriously. And respectfully, this is for anybody that thinks that doesn't matter. Let me tell you exactly why. Take the college football rule instant. You take the ball second so you know exactly what you have to do. Now, a lot of people are saying, okay, both teams get to possess the ball. But here's the reality. If the 49ers were so keen on Kansas City, I want you to listen to me. even if they were worried about Kansas City just getting a field goal, you still got to stop them eventually. I mean, the thing is, the Kansas City Chiefs you were allowing them to methodically move it down the field. I mean, let's keep it in perspective here. Yes, I get it. You're trying to keep them from tying the game. But why would you even think that you wanted an opportunity to win the game? Especially after you yanked off over 7 minutes off that clock.
You're a stupid dumbass.
7 minutes. That wasn't your plan. You sat there and thought you were just going to run down the field and score 6 on this daggum Kansas City.
Who told you to think? I don't give you enough information to think. You do what you're told. That's what you do.
Exactly. You assumed you were going to score 6.
You suck.
And that goes back to the Herm Edwards argument. You don't assume you're going to score 6 points on a team that you barely scored. What was it? You scored 2 touchdowns on? And one of them came on a double pass?
Bruh.
Anyway, that was horrible coaching again by Shanahan. Because I take the ball second, so I at least know what I have to do. I understand what your whole point is about not allowing them to get it last. But Shanahan, ain't your defense been playing pretty darn good all night? Haven't they? At some point, you got to live and die by the same defense that's gotten you to the Super Bowl a couple of times, right? You just hadn't got it right at quarterback yet. And I still think you haven't. But that's neither here nor there. But I will definitely question a lot of people that believe that taking the ball first and then slowly, methodically taking it down the field makes no sense. If anything, you should have been trying to take your shots instead of taking it down the field slowly. Taking it down the field slowly doesn't benefit you any, especially if you're the one trying to get that ball last. It doesn't benefit you. I mean, the analytics don't make sense. They don't. I'm sorry. You got to score that touchdown first. That's the thing that you missed. You didn't score the touchdown first. You didn't block Chris Jones. But let's wrap this up, you guys. Chiefs 25, 49ers 22. Mahomes wins another MVP, Super Bowl MVP, his third. He is now 28 years old, and I think there's serious talk now about him catching the GOAT himself in Tom Brady. And I said something a couple of years ago when they played that Mahomes could still catch Tom Brady in the GOAT conversation. Now it's looking more realistic. And honestly, I don't know if it's going to be realistic. They've got a lot of things they've got to do. Chris Jones is a free agent now. They really don't have a ton of weapons. The defense is pretty good, but I don't think they're going to be able to keep all of them. And, of course, Joe Burrow will be back and healthier than ever. Trevor Lawrence will be back in full strength. Josh Allen is going to eventually get it figured out. I don't think this was all his fault. I think there's some things that are going to be changed over there. And, yeah, I think there's going to be some things that are going to be changed in a lot of places. You still have got C.J. Stroud coming up. Mahomes is going to have to claw his way through it. He's gotten 3. And as I said before, it's going to be some changes made. And, of course, you got Deshaun Watson coming back in Cleveland. And you got that whole drama that's being played out there. And, of course, you always got to count in the Pittsburgh Steelers. But, guys, let me know what you thought about Super Bowl 58 with Patrick Mahomes being the MVP. And the 49ers falling short and them already being the favorites for next season. Drop me a line over at Mr. CeeLo on Instagram, as well as dropping some comments over on Facebook, Gridiron Gab Pro Style, and check me out on YouTube. This is where this will be, and we will be expanding to another platform known as Twitch next year, you guys. It'll be a couple of weeks, and I will give you guys the 411 when we finally go there. But until next season, you guys, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.
But behold, there is a warm breeze that comes from the west. The blazing sounds of victory fuel their everlasting quest. It is a call to arms, for they are here. An army that has the will to challenge and the will to dare.